When it comes to pet frogs, you don't really get much better than a PacMan frog. They're super easy to care for, very entertaining, and in my opinion, they're quite cute to look at. So, tank parameters. We're going to say 26 degrees Celsius in terms of heat on their hotspot, which is this much in Fahrenheit. And for humidity, I'm not quite sure, but I would spray twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening, and make sure the dirt stays very nice and wet, because that's where your PacMan frog is going to be most of the time, sitting in the dirt. Right, let's talk about the size of your tank now, and how you should set it up. So I'm going to go and grab I'm going to use this as an example. I'd recommend a lot bigger than this. I'd recommend a 10-gallon tank, which 10 American gallons, 40 litres in the UK. But I'm going to use this as an example. Right, so firstly what you're going to want to do is we're going to get a heat mat, and you're going to stick it on one side. Doesn't matter which side. At one side of the heat mat, so you get a nice heat gradient. You're going to want a water bowl. You're going to want a few hides, I'd recommend, although it's unlikely your PacMan frog's really going to use them. I would still recommend it, and it does look nice. And I would definitely recommend leaf litter. It's something great for your PacMan frog to hide underneath, especially if you're going bioactive. It's an essential. Although quite a lot of people will say that special lighting isn't necessary, I would recommend using UV. I personally use it. You can see right there that I've got UV on my PacMan frog tank, and it is pretty important. Although if albino frogs like mine, you do want to be careful because obviously their skin's quite delicate. UV's very important for most animals, and I'd recommend it. So if you can provide it, even if it's just like a little bulb, I totally would recommend it. It's very good for them. Alright, we've got most of the boring stuff out of the way. What do we really want to hear? We want to hear about the feeding, which is the cool part of these animals. So, I'm going to go get my feeders that I use. Got the feeders. Alright, so my PacMan frog is very picky for a PacMan frog. Your PacMan frog most likely won't be as picky, but I find his favourite has got to be locusts. They are great. Very big, very active. That's what they need. PacMan frogs won't go for small prey. They're going to want big prey. And you'll be surprised how much they can eat. So large locusts, like this, are amazing. Another thing that it tends to take him a little bit for him to go for these, but that's Morio worms. I wouldn't recommend mealworms. Mealworms are quite small. Morio worms though, they're nice and big. Quite juicy, although they are pretty small compared to his mouth. What I'd recommend, if he wasn't so fussy, I'd recommend you feed them night crawlers, earthworms. Those are great for them. But there's a lot you can feed them. Dubia roaches, also amazing. Black crickets, basically anything that's big and chunky. And make sure you do a little bit more research on this, but anything big and chunky, they'll eat it. Freeze-dried prey. So you want to go for like freeze-dried anoles, quails. I would not recommend goldfish. Goldfish aren't good for them, but certain types of fish. Of course, freeze-dried rodents. I actually use those. They are amazing prey items, and it's pretty cool because you can be like, oh, I've got a frog, and it eats mice. And I found I'd recommend feeding them fuzzies. Not very often. Don't feed your PacMan frog mice all the time. It's not amazing for them. It's good every now and then, but not too much. I'd recommend a fuzzy every 2 weeks, and every couple months I do give my PacMan frog a small mouse, and it's amazing seeing him eat that. I'll show you a clip here. But yeah, the main thing that I'm trying to get across is something that I didn't know about when I got a PacMan frog, and I couldn't feed him for ages, simply because they don't really go after small prey. They want to wait for something big to come past. So I was trying to feed them these tiny mealworms, tiny crickets. You want something massive, massive locusts. You know what I'm talking about, big things. Other things that they eat, everything. But yeah, you do have to be careful with feeding them some things, but most of the time, they eat anything. That's why they're called PacMan frogs. They eat everything and anything. They've got a ravenous appetite. This is my first video, so I'd really appreciate if you guys could like and subscribe, boost it to the algorithm. I do have a TikTok account. Unfortunately, it's been privated and it's proving difficult to fix, but if you do request to follow me, I will completely accept. That's kind of it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.